On my birthday, my family barely acknowledged me, leaving me feeling invisible and hurt. As they continued to ignore my presence, I gathered the courage to share a secret I had been holding back, a revelation that stunned them and shifted everything between us. I revealed something deeply personal that explained my recent distance and struggles. Their reactions caught me off guard, forcing me to confront feelings I hadn't expected. Before we dive back in, let us know where you're tuning in from. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, I've got something even more special lined up just for you. The moment I stepped into the living room that day, my birthday, I felt as if I had walked into a ghost house. The chatter and laughter of my family filled the space, but not for me. Not a single happy birthday escaped anyone's lips. No hugs, no smiles, no acknowledgement at all. My heart dropped in my chest, each beat echoing the cold reality that I was completely invisible. I stood there, clutching the small gift I had brought, desperate for any sign that I mattered. But the faces around me turned away, eyes avoiding mine as if I were a stranger in my own home. How could this be happening? How could my family, the people I loved more than anything, completely ignore me on my birthday? I was stunned, confused, hurt. The weight of their silence crushed me, and I could barely breathe. The house felt suffocating despite all the noise, the laughter that wasn't for me. I wanted to scream, to demand their attention, to ask why, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I backed away slowly, overwhelmed by a sense of loss so profound it left me trembling. I knew something had changed, something I hadn't seen coming, but I couldn't understand what it was yet. The warmth, the closeness we once shared, had vanished overnight. My name is Emma, and for as long as I can remember, I was the one who held everything together. The dependable middle child, the caregiver, the peacekeeper. I worked as a nurse, long, exhausting shifts, and still found energy to support my family. When my parents needed help, I was there. When my siblings faced problems, I was their shoulder. I never expected anything back. I believed love was enough to keep us connected. Growing up, our family was loud, chaotic, messy, but full of love. Family dinners were our sacred ritual, filled with teasing, laughter, and stories that echoed deep into the night. I was proud to be the reliable one, the person everyone leaned on. But over time, cracks appeared beneath the surface. Arguments that didn't resolve. Cold silences after phone calls went unanswered. Small resentments that simmered beneath polite smiles. I told myself it was normal. Every family has its struggles. But deep down, I sensed a growing distance I couldn't ignore. The closeness was slipping away, and no one seemed to notice or care. That birthday was the breaking point. The day I finally realized I wasn't just feeling left out, I was being deliberately pushed aside. The realization hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. I was no longer the beloved daughter or sister. I was a ghost. I had been struggling quietly for months. The exhaustion of my job, the loneliness in my personal life, and the emotional toll of trying to hold on to a family that was slipping away, all of it had piled up inside me. I had secrets I couldn't share, pain I kept hidden. I thought if I stayed strong, if I kept sacrificing, everything would eventually be okay. But on that day, their silence told me otherwise. As the night wore on, I retreated to my room, heart heavy and eyes stinging with tears I refused to shed in front of them. I thought back on all the moments I had given, every missed night out, every late shift covered, every small kindness unnoticed. The sacrifices that I had made for a family that no longer seemed to want me. The truth I hid from them, and even from myself, was waiting beneath the surface, a secret so powerful that it could change everything. It was a secret I had kept hidden for months, carefully tucked away behind forced smiles and quiet nights. A secret that gave me control, power I never expected to hold. But before I could reveal it, I had to face the wound their betrayal had left, deep and raw. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next, but I knew I had no choice. That night, I lay awake, wondering how everything I believed in could unravel so fast. The silence was deafening, but it forced me to see the truth clearly. I couldn't stay the invisible girl anymore. It was time to take back my voice, my life, and confront the family that had turned their backs on me. In the days that followed my birthday, the silence from my family didn't lessen. If anything, it grew heavier, more suffocating. I found myself walking through my own home like a shadow, watching people who once were my whole world now act like I was a stranger they didn't know. I wanted answers. Why? What had changed? But when I tried to ask, their eyes dropped, conversations ended, and the distance between us only widened. I realized I had been blind to the cracks for too long. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. My parents worked hard, often putting in extra hours to provide for us. I understood that. I didn't complain when I gave up my own plans to babysit my younger siblings or help around the house. I was proud to be dependable. My job as a nurse was more than just a career. It was my way of making a difference, of caring for others the way I had cared for my family. Even when my shifts left me drained, I pushed on. I thought that love and sacrifice would be enough to keep us close. But over time, the balance shifted. My family began to expect more and more without offering anything in return. I became their safety net, their fallback, but never someone they considered in their own right. I stopped sharing my struggles because I didn't want to burden anyone. I smiled through exhaustion, hid the loneliness that crept in like a shadow. I told myself I was doing it for them, for us. But the truth was, I was slowly disappearing from my own life. There were moments I sensed the change. Small things that seemed insignificant at first. A missed phone call that wasn't returned. A birthday card left unopened. Invitations to family events that never arrived. I brushed them off, thinking maybe they were busy, distracted, or simply forgetful. But the distance grew. The love I once took for granted became cold and distant. I remember one night, a few months before my birthday, sitting at the kitchen table after a long shift, my hands trembling from fatigue. My mother glanced at me with tired eyes but said nothing. My father was distracted by his phone, scrolling endlessly. My siblings barely looked up from their devices. I wanted to tell them how hard it was, how alone I felt. But the words stuck in my throat. How could I explain that the people who were supposed to be my anchor had become my greatest source of pain? I was holding on to a threadbare version of family, desperately trying to keep it together even as it frayed around the edges. The betrayal I felt on my birthday was the culmination of all these small fractures. Silent rejections, ignored cries, and hidden resentments. It wasn't just neglect. It was deliberate. And it was devastating. But what hurt the most was the secrecy, the unspoken truth that none of us wanted to face. There was something lurking beneath the surface, something I hadn't yet discovered, but that was poisoning our family from within. Despite everything, I still held on to hope. I told myself that if I could just explain, if I could just show them the truth behind my silence and absence, maybe things could heal. But I was wrong. Because there was one secret I'd been hiding, a secret that wasn't just mine, but one that had the power to change everything between us. It was a secret born out of years of sacrifice, pain, and quiet strength. A secret I wasn't sure I was ready to reveal. Not yet. In the quiet hours, I went over it again and again. The plan I had kept hidden, the resources I had saved, the steps I had taken without anyone knowing. All of it felt like a lifeline. If my family wouldn't stand by me, I would stand on my own. And maybe, just maybe, I could take back what was lost. But first, I had to face the bitter truth of their betrayal head-on. The shock of being ignored on my birthday was just the beginning. It cracked open a door I had tried to keep closed, forcing me to confront every painful moment I had shoved aside. Every sacrifice made, every hurt endured, every lonely night spent hoping for a connection that was gone. That day, I made a silent vow. I wouldn't disappear any longer. I wouldn't be the forgotten daughter or sister. I would rise, stronger and fiercer than before. And when the time came, I would reveal the secret that would turn everything around. But for now, the wound was fresh, and the path ahead was uncertain. The day my family ignored me on my birthday wasn't just an accident or a momentary lapse. It was the brutal culmination of months, maybe years, of growing distance and unspoken resentments. As I stood there, invisible in the middle of the room, a quiet storm was raging inside me. The betrayal I felt was like a knife twisting slowly in my chest. How could those who once held me so close suddenly act as if I didn't exist? How could they look me in the eye and pretend I was nothing? After retreating to my room, the silence felt suffocating. The muffled sounds of celebration downstairs mocked me. Their laughter wasn't for me anymore. I replayed the evening over and over in my mind, each moment more painful than the last. The way my mother's eyes flicked away when I tried to catch her gaze. The forced smiles my siblings wore when I entered the room. The fact that no one had the courage to say a single kind word. It wasn't just neglect, it was a message. I was no longer welcome. But that night, amid the tears and pounding heartache, I realized this wasn't new. It was only the most visible symptom of something deeper. The cracks in our family had been there for years, slowly widening with every unspoken argument, every forgotten call, every grudge buried and left to fester in silence. I had been too blind, too hopeful to see it. My sacrifices, my efforts to hold us together, had been met with resentment, jealousy, and coldness. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. But the worst part wasn't even their rejection. It was the betrayal of trust. The subtle way they had turned against me without ever telling me why. The whispered conversations behind closed doors, the sharp glances that halted when I entered, the secret resentments simmering under the surface. I was being pushed out, systematically erased, and the people I loved most were doing it. I spent nights lying awake, haunted by fragments of conversations I overheard, just pieces of sentences about money, inheritance, old family wounds, and grudges I never knew existed. There was talk of debts I hadn't been told about, of past mistakes being thrown in my face like weapons. It was like discovering an entire hidden world where I was the villain, the outsider, the problem to be solved by ignoring me. The realization was devastating. I had thought family meant unconditional love and support. But here I was, the target of cold calculation and betrayal. Despite the overwhelming pain, a quiet rage began to burn inside me. I refused to be a victim. I refused to disappear. I had been preparing for this moment in secret. While they talked behind my back, I had been quietly building something no one knew about. My own safety net, my own weapon. Years of late-night shifts and sacrifices had given me more than exhaustion. They had given me a secret. I had been saving money, carefully, meticulously, hiding it from everyone because I knew once it was known, it would be used against me or taken away. Money isn't just currency, it's power. And power was exactly what I needed now. I had also been educating myself, learning about legal rights, about how to protect what was mine, about how to navigate the messy waters of family disputes and inheritance laws. I read countless books, consulted with a discreet lawyer friend, and kept everything hidden behind a carefully constructed wall of silence. This secret gave me something no one else had: control. For months, I had nurtured this plan quietly, letting it grow while I endured their growing coldness. Now, with the betrayal exposed and the family fractures laid bare, I knew it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to take back my life. I was no longer the ignored sister or the overlooked daughter. I was someone with resources, with knowledge, and with a will of iron. But the path ahead was daunting. I had to be careful. Any misstep could mean losing everything. Not just the money but the last shred of dignity I had left. I needed to gather my strength, prepare for confrontation, and wait for the right moment. That moment I knew was coming. Despite the bitterness and heartache, I felt a flicker of hope. The secret I held was more than just money. It was my lifeline. It was a chance for justice, for reclaiming what was taken, for showing my family that I was no longer powerless. I realized the betrayal I endured was also my awakening. It shattered the illusion of perfect family harmony and forced me to see reality for what it was, a battleground where I had to fight for my place. The fire inside me burned hotter than ever before. The silent girl who stood forgotten on her birthday was gone. In her place was a woman ready to fight, ready to reveal the truth, and ready to take control. This was no longer about forgiveness or reconciliation. It was about survival. It was about standing up and demanding respect. And soon, they would all see what I was capable of. The morning after my birthday betrayal, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The fog of hurt and confusion was slowly lifting, replaced by a fierce determination. I wasn't going to let their rejection define me, or break me. I had a secret weapon, and now was the time to wield it. I began by quietly organizing the documents and resources I had carefully amassed over the years. Bank statements, investment accounts, legal papers, all hidden in a locked drawer I rarely opened. It was more than just money. It was a testament to every sacrifice I'd made, every late night, every skipped meal. This was my independence, my power, and my ticket out of their shadow. The first step was to secure my financial footing. I met with a trusted lawyer friend, someone outside my family circle, who had helped me understand my rights. Together, we reviewed everything, building a plan that would protect my interests and give me leverage. It wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my identity and dignity. Meanwhile, I kept my family at arm's length. I watched their guarded expressions, their forced smiles whenever I entered the room. But now, I was different. I no longer sought their approval or warmth. I was preparing to confront them, not with tears, but with undeniable strength. One evening, after a tense family dinner where silence hung thick between us, I decided it was time. I gathered everyone into the living room, the same room where I had felt so invisible days before. My heart pounded, but I refused to show weakness. "I need to talk," I began, voice steady but firm. "There's something I've been hiding. Something you all need to know." They looked at me, surprise flickering in their eyes. The room grew still. I took a deep breath and revealed the truth about the money I'd saved and the plan I had been building. I explained how I had prepared for the worst because I felt abandoned and betrayed. I told them that their silence on my birthday wasn't just hurtful. It was a breaking point. The room was heavy with shock and disbelief. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. Not because of what I was saying, but because of the power I held. I was no longer the quiet, invisible sister. I was a force to be reckoned with. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of tension and confrontation. Some family members tried to deny the rift, others lashed out in anger, but I stood my ground. I negotiated with calm precision, asserting my rights and demanding respect. I refused to be sidelined again. Slowly, the balance of power shifted. The same family that had ignored me now had to reckon with my strength. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my place in the family and in my own life. Alongside the financial moves, I began to rebuild myself emotionally. Therapy sessions helped me untangle the hurt and guilt I had carried. I reconnected with friends who reminded me of my worth. I rediscovered passions I had set aside, reigniting a sense of purpose beyond family drama. Through it all, the secret I had kept was my anchor and my sword. It allowed me to walk into every confrontation with confidence and clarity. The betrayal had tested me, but it hadn't broken me. Instead, it forged a new version of myself, stronger, wiser, and unafraid to demand what I deserved. I realized that empowerment wasn't just about taking control of my finances or legal standing. It was about reclaiming my voice and refusing to be invisible ever again. My family had thought they could push me aside, silence me, and make me disappear. Instead, I stood taller than ever, ready to face whatever came next with open eyes and an unbreakable spirit. The battle was far from over, but I was no longer afraid. I was in control now. And that made all the difference. The days and weeks following my birthday confrontation with my family were a turbulent storm of emotions, negotiations, and painful truths. The atmosphere in our home was thick with tension. Every conversation felt like walking on thin ice, every glance loaded with unspoken words. The silence that had once made me feel invisible was replaced by a heavy, suffocating presence, one that demanded acknowledgement but offered no easy resolution. My revelation about the secret savings, the years of quiet sacrifice and preparation, had caught them completely off guard. The power dynamics had shifted, And suddenly, the family members who had ignored me on the day I was supposed to be celebrated had to reckon with a new reality. I was no longer the powerless sister or daughter. I was a woman with resources, knowledge, and the courage to claim what was rightfully mine. My lawyer friend and I spent hours drawing up documents to ensure that my financial independence was protected. It wasn't about punishing anyone or seeking revenge. It was about survival, about reclaiming my dignity and securing my future. Each signature, each legal clause, felt like a brick laid in the foundation of my new life. Negotiations were tense and often fraught with emotion. My older brother, once so dismissive, sat across from me at the kitchen table one afternoon. His jaw was tight, eyes avoiding mine as I calmly outlined my expectations. Fair distribution of family assets, respect for my autonomy, and clear boundaries to prevent further betrayals. I never wanted it to come to this, he admitted quietly, his voice thick with regret. We've all made mistakes. Me too, I responded, my voice steady. But ignoring me, pushing me aside, that was a mistake too. And it's time we face it. This was not just a battle for money. It was a fight to be seen, to be heard, and to reclaim the self-worth that had been chipped away by years of neglect. My mother reached out to me in the weeks that followed, her voice trembling during a late-night call. She apologized, not only for the silence on my birthday but for years of misunderstanding and neglect. The tears that choked her words were genuine, but I knew healing would take time, for both of us. I listened, held space for her sorrow, but I didn't rush forgiveness. I had to protect myself first. Other family members were less willing to reconcile. Some turned cold, refusing to acknowledge the fractures exposed by my revelation. Others tried to guilt me, accusing me of greed or betrayal. I learned to hold firm, to trust my instincts, and to set boundaries even when it was painful. With the financial and legal groundwork laid, I turned my attention inward. Moving into a small, bright apartment was a symbolic fresh start. I decorated it with care, plants that thrived under my nurturing, photos of moments that reminded me who I was beyond family pain, books that fed my soul. This was my sanctuary, a place where I could rebuild the pieces of myself that had been neglected. Therapy became my lifeline. Each session was a deep dive into the tangled web of guilt, anger, and grief I carried. I confronted the shame I had hidden behind smiles and quiet endurance. I learned to forgive myself for not speaking up sooner, for hiding my pain. More importantly, I learned to love myself, not as the family caretaker or the invisible daughter, but as Emma, a woman deserving of respect, joy, and peace. Reclaiming my identity also meant rediscovering passions I had set aside. I enrolled in a creative writing course, pouring my heart into words and stories. The process was cathartic. Each page written was a step away from the past and a step toward a future I could shape on my own terms. One evening, months after the initial storm, I received a tentative invitation to a family gathering. It was awkwardly worded, cautious, an olive branch extended but trembling in its reach. I debated for days. Could I risk reopening wounds? Could I face the people who had hurt me and still protect my fragile peace? In the end, I decided to go, not because I expected miracles, but because I wanted to show them, and myself, that I was stronger now. That I could face the past without fear. The gathering was tense but sincere. Apologies were whispered, tears were shed, and for the first time in a long time, I glimpsed the warmth we had lost. It was imperfect and fragile, but it was a start. Standing in that room, surrounded by the family that once ignored me, I felt a quiet power settle inside me. The girl who had been invisible on her birthday was gone. In her place was a woman who had faced betrayal, unearthed her strength, and refused to be broken. The journey had been painful, and the scars remained, but I was no longer defined by them. I was more than the sum of my pain and my family's silence. That night, as I stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly before me, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past would always be a part of me, but it no longer controlled me. I whispered to the night, I am not who they tried to make me. I am whole. I am free. The betrayal had been a breaking point, but also a beginning. I had reclaimed my voice, my power, and my life. The road ahead was mine to walk, with strength born from every wound and every secret finally revealed. This was my new beginning.